First of all, I want to thank you and the Chester County Libertarians for inviting me to come here tonight. It's certainly a pleasure to be here. What I'd like to do is go through my standard stump speech. It's the same speech that I would give to any audience, whether it's Republicans, PTA, national TV, or whoever it's going to be. But then after that, I want to add on a few minutes and just talk to you folk as Libertarians. And then open up for Q&A. Sound good? Good. So let me start at the beginning. My name is Krawchuk. I'm 60 years old, and I'm running for the Libertarian Party nomination for governor. I was born and raised in Philadelphia, still living just outside of Philadelphia. Still married to my first wife, Roberta, for the last, 36 years. In fact, our kids pick on us because they say, all of our friends' parents are divorced, separated. What's wrong with you guys? So we have 3 daughters, and they all pick on us, and 2 grandchildren so far. I keep pushing the kids, saying, come on, more grandchildren, more grandchildren. But we'll see. Professionally, I'm an information technology entrepreneur. I've been running my own company since the 80s, and I have 3 United States patents related to database theory. I've also written my first novel last year, just released, Atlas Snubbed. I brought a copy with me. It's a parody sequel to Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. I'm calling it my platform novel because it has a lot of the ideas that I'm running on for governor this year that are in here. It's one of the reasons why I drag it along with me. So I'm a family man, a businessman, an inventor, an author, but most importantly, I'm a libertarian. In 2002, I was the Libertarian Party candidate for governor. I've run for office 9 times now. In 1998, I ran against Tom Ridge for governor. I've also run for local office, town council, state representative, things like that. Now, it's important that I'm a libertarian because we libertarians are different from the 2 old parties because we are the party of principle. Every law we support, every law we oppose can all be traced back to one central idea. The idea that your life is yours, that your property is yours, that you have the God-given, inalienable right to live your life your way without interference, provided only that you respect the rights and property of others. That's it. That's what it means to be a libertarian. Your life, your way. It's the golden rule on a political level. And the public has reacted very strongly to this message. Since our founding in 1971, we have grown to become the 3rd largest party, not just in Pennsylvania, but nationwide, outnumbering all of the other 3rd parties put together. In terms of elected officials, we have nationwide, last number I heard was about 160, 170 elected or appointed libertarians, with about 40 of those in Pennsylvania. Now, I haven't seen the final numbers from the last election yet. It was 36 before the last election, and I know several elections. I just don't know the balance, how it came out. But we have about 20–25% of all elected libertarians here in Pennsylvania. That calls, again, that outnumbers all the other 3rd parties put together. I call us the 800-pound chihuahua of politics. So that's a quick overview of the Libertarian Party. Let me tell you a little bit about what you can expect from a Libertarian governor. Now, of course, you can expect somebody who's going to respect your right to live your life your way. And fortunately, I have an easy job description. Here it is, the Pennsylvania Constitution. This tells me what my job description is. Now, within that job description, I've traveled the state a lot, and I've talked to a lot of voters. And I found there are several things that are on top of their minds. And let me just touch on the top 3. And if you have other ones you want to know about, we can talk about it during Q&A. But the number 1 issue statewide is taxes. Who thinks taxes are too low? Can't hear me over the Christmas carols? Who thinks taxes are low? Of course taxes are not too low. They're too high. The reason why taxes are so high is because spending is so high. The reason why spending is so high is because the government has taken on so many programs, some of them constitutional, most of them unconstitutional. In fact, the size of government here in Pennsylvania has been growing at more than 3 times the rate of inflation for over 50 years. When I ran for governor back in 2002, I stood in front of crowds and said, the size of government in Pennsylvania has been growing at 3 times the rate of inflation for over 40 years. Here it is, 12 years later, and it's still going up. It doesn't matter if it's a Democrat in office, it doesn't matter if it's a Republican in office. Government keeps growing in scope and growing in size. When I become governor, that trend will end. Because one of the powers that I get from my job description is the power of the veto. I promise I will veto every single tax increase. So that means it's going to take a supermajority of the two houses, 2/3 of a vote, in order to override my veto. So right away, I'm going to be putting the brakes on government. Also, one thing that I have that the United States President doesn't have is the line item veto. So I can look for individual unconstitutional programs, like that state registry of gun owners, just defund it, one after the other. Again, it's going to take a supermajority to reinstate those things, but at least I'm going to do my best to slow that process down. So that's the number one issue, taxes. Oh, one other thing, not only will I veto all tax increases, I will introduce a series of budgets over 4 years to reduce the Pennsylvania personal income tax to 0 and eliminate it completely. That's my plan for taxes. We're going to reduce the size and scope of government, reduce the cost of government for the first time in over 50 years. The second issue that I hear when I'm out there on the campaign trail is crime. Crime is everywhere. But I found an interesting statistic from the Commonwealth Foundation. They pointed out that 95% of crimes are committed by only 5% of the criminals. That means there's just a small cadre of bad guys who are causing most of the problems. Again, in my job description, it gives me something I can do unilaterally, again, without the help of the legislature, and that is, on my first day in office, I will eliminate parole for violent criminals. Since 95% of crimes are committed by 5% of the criminals, if we keep them in jail, we are guaranteed to reduce crime. It's a no-brainer, especially after we've gone through all the trouble of getting them through our convoluted criminal justice system to get them into jail in the first place. It's just unbelievable that anybody would even think of letting them out. Once I'm governor, that will stop. A lot of times when I mention that, people say, come on, Ken, the prisons are already overcrowded. Where are you going to put all these guys? You're going to spend more on prisons? No. Because there are a lot of people in prison right now who don't belong there. I'm talking about nonviolent drug offenders. The high school kid who was smoking a joint, the guy who's blowing off the line, they've never hurt anybody. One of the powers that I'm granted by the Constitution is the power of the pardon. Another one of my promises, on day one, I will pardon every single nonviolent drug offender. Thank you. Because it has gotten so bad. The last number I saw was that 59.9% of the prisoners were there for some kind of a drug offense. That's why the prisons are all overcrowded. In a lot of places around the Commonwealth, they've established prison caps, where you can only have so many prisoners in there. The prisons are all overcrowded. In fact, those caps are crunching so hard into the prison population that we've reached the point where we're releasing murderers and rapists to make room for pot-smoking Grateful Dead fans. That's insane! Who would you rather see in jail? A murderer or a pot smoker? And if you look at the cost, you take the cost of the entire prison system, divided by the number of prisoners, it's about $40,000 a prisoner. That $40,000 to keep a pot smoker in jail is coming out of your pocket. When I'm governor, they have a get out of jail free card. And not just the nonviolent drug offenders. Anybody who's in there for any kind of a non-crime. For example, if you were caught carrying a concealed weapon and you don't have a concealed carry permit, you have a pardon. As long as you were minding your own business, respecting the rights and property of others, you have a get out of jail free card from this government. So that's my plan for attacking crime. Guaranteed to reduce crime, guaranteed to reduce the size of the prisons, guaranteed to reduce the cost of prisons. The third issue that I hear about, and sometimes I hear about this one more than all the others, is education. Right now in Pennsylvania, 95% of our kids all go to the same school system, the government school system. It's a virtual monopoly. And like any monopoly, the costs are high, the choices are low, and the quality is not always the best. One thing I would like to see, I would introduce competition into our government school systems to improve the quality. And the best way to bring competition in there is to bring in somebody who has been ignored so far in this entire education discussion, and that's the parents. Right now we have an unelected school board in Harrisburg who decide who can teach, who can't teach, what the curriculum is, what it isn't. And now they're talking about this out-of-state Common Core standards, and they're taking it further and further and further away from local control. What I would like to see, I would bring the parents back in. And in order to introduce competition, specifically what I would do is I would allow the parents to choose any government school district for their child. And the funding that would have gone to their local district will follow the child to the school district of the parent's choice. That way, good schools will get more money and grow. And the bad schools will be put on notice by their declining enrollment that they better straighten up or else they're going to get closed down. And if they do get closed down, well, let me get to that in a second. Good. People would yell at me for that. What, you're going to close my neighborhood school? Yes, but no. What's going to happen is, once they close down and all the students are going to this good school, they're all not going to fit in that good school. So what we can do is the good school can take over the local school, and all the good techniques they were using there, which attracted all those students, they can now start employing those in the failing schools. So the failing schools are guaranteed to get better. The local neighborhood schools will get better because the parents are going to choose. So when I say better, I don't mean better in some bureaucrat's decision, I don't mean better in my decision, I mean better in the parents' decision. So we can introduce competition into the schools by letting the parents choose the school. Now, of course, any transportation costs would have to be borne by the parents. It only makes sense. You don't want to have a kid here in Chester County going to a school up in Erie and having the government pick up the tab for that. Back in the days when I went to school, I paid my own bus tokens in the Philadelphia PTC system it was back then, SEPTA now. So without spending another dime, leaving everything as it is right now, we can improve the quality of education and not raise taxes. Simple approach. I have a few other approaches that could even go better than that. Take it a step forward, further. Do you know how much it costs to educate somebody? A couple weeks ago, I went online. I was looking at the local schools. I live in Abington Township, so I was looking at schools in my neighborhood there. So I looked at all the private schools, and I found that tuition was running, well, for the fancy schools, like the Friends School, the Germantown Academy, about $20,000 a year. For some of the Catholic schools, it was down there around $2,000, $3,000 a year. For some of the regular schools, maybe about 8, 9, 10, 11, 12,000. Ignoring the high-end schools, looking at all the others, the average cost of a year of education in the Abington area is about $9,000 a kid. Well, I took the Abington School District's budget, divided it by the number of kids they have in the school. Guess how much it costs to educate a kid in Abington Township at their government schools? Take a guess. $9,000 is the average for the private schools. Guess what it is for the government school?
20.
Very close. A little over $18,000. Twice as much. If our school boards, instead of building their own Taj Mahals, if they took the kids and placed them in local schools instead, we could cut property taxes in half overnight. That's a big step. Why should we cater to these school boards who want to have their big Taj Mahals, who want to have their local power to enforce the curriculum that these unelected people in Harrisburg want to say, or the Common Core people outside the state? Let's not do that. We get parents involved in the decision as to which school they get placed in. So now the parents can choose what sort of a private school they want. The cost of school education goes down, and that savings can be passed right along to the property owner. I have a third option. It goes even a little bit further than that. I call it the great offer. Great offer is, if you promise to educate your own children, you will never have to pay property taxes. Sound like a good idea? I mentioned that to seniors. They love it because they can't afford the property taxes. A lot of them can. And they're paying for a service that they're not using, not directly using. Childless couples love it because they're not paying, again, for a service they're not using. People who are sending their kids to a private school, they love it because right now they're paying twice. Once in the private school and once in taxes. And even the people who have children like it too, because overall this is going to lower the cost of education for everyone. Great offer. Because right now, you're paying through your property tax.
And you're paying it this year, and next year, and next year, and the year after that, and the year after that, and the year after that, you're paying it forever. Now, educating a child is expensive. So you may have to borrow money for it, you may have to take out a second mortgage. It may take 5, 10, 15 years to pay it off, but when you did, you're done. It's over, it's behind you. Instead, what we have now is you're paying it next year. When you're 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, you're still paying for education that you're not using. So the great offer is a way to eliminate property taxes completely. So there are my 3 suggestions for education, my plan for education. First one is to allow parents to choose any school, and it keeps the cost the same but improves quality, essentially eliminates the monopoly. The second one is to place kids in local private schools instead of building Taj Mahals, and then we'll be able to cut property taxes in half. And the third one is the great offer, where we can eliminate property taxes entirely. Now at this point, if I'm talking to a regular audience, I open up the floor for questions. But before I do that, I want to talk to you guys as libertarians, guys and girls. I'm from Philadelphia. I call everybody guys. What can I say? Happens when you're raised in North Philly. I'm going to talk about being a libertarian. The campaign, not just my campaign, but the campaign for all libertarians across 2014. I can break it down into 3 distinct sections. The first one we're in right now, and this is where people start seeking the nomination. Like I'm here seeking the nomination. Now, I'm not the only one seeking the nomination. I heard 2 other people seeking the gubernatorial nomination. The first one is Betsy Summers, who is our Eastern Vice Chair, and she also ran for U.S. Senate twice with the party. In fact, she is the 2nd highest vote getter in Pennsylvania Libertarian Party history. I called her up when I was thinking of announcing. I said, Betsy, I hear you're running. She says, yeah, why, are you thinking? She says, yeah, I was thinking of running. She says, thank God I don't have to run. She was only running because she hadn't heard anybody else was going to run. But she said, good, I'll step back. So Betsy's done a lot of work for the party. I did ask her if she would consider running for lieutenant governor. And she is considering that. And that's a good thing too, because all things equal in the voting booth, people tend to vote more for a woman than a guy. So since we're running as a team, it should help boost the libertarian vote total. We'll see. The other person I heard was running, his name is Steve Miller. He's a comedian from Philadelphia. This year, he was on the ballot as our candidate for one of the Philadelphia courts, and I forget which one. It's the equivalent of the Common Pleas Court. But Philadelphia has their own court set up there. It's all different in Philadelphia. But he ran for that. So he's been around the block in terms of running for office. So he's seeking the nomination. The decision is going to be made at our state convention, which is going to be held on February 22nd in the Lehigh Valley area. I'm not sure exactly where yet. The state board is working out the details on that at the moment. So that's when the decision will be made. Once that decision is made, that is the first piece of the campaign. Now, as I said before, it's not just me. There's going to be other people too. And that's one of the big reasons I'm here. Not just to introduce myself, but to ask you guys and girls, please run for office. Next year, the only ones that we have up are governor, lieutenant governor, state senators, state representatives. That's it. No town councils, no sheriffs, no school boards, no county commissioners or anything like that. Just a small number of races. Because the more people we have on the ballot, the easier it is to get our top people on the ballot. Typically we need a lot of signatures to get on the ballot. When I ran in 2002, I needed 21,027 signatures. They come up with that number based on a complex formula. It's 2% of the highest vote getter in the prior election for that district. So what we do is we look back to this 2013 race. Fortunately, there was only one statewide race, and it was a judge race. That's fortunate because there's 2 good things about it. People don't vote in judge races, so the vote totals are low. So when they calculate our 2%, it's on a low number. As it turned out, it was a very close race, 49 to 51%, and that lowers the number even further. So this year, to get on the statewide ballot, we're looking at approximately 16,500 signatures. They haven't certified the election yet, at least last time I looked, I haven't seen it yet. So we don't know exactly what the number is, but it's going to be in the ballpark between 16,000 and 17,000 signatures, which is low, relatively low. But if we can get state rep candidates on the ballot, to get on the ballot for state rep, you need 300, 400 signatures. So you want to get a cushion in case some of your signatures are disqualified. So that's about 600, 700 signatures. Well, in statewide, we'd be looking to get roughly double too. So we're aiming at about 33,000 signatures. Well, if you do the math, if we can get 40 state rep candidates out of the, what's available, 203, if we could just go for 20% of the state rep seats and they get signatures, then our top of the ticket people are guaranteed to get it. So one thing I would ask you to do between now and the state convention in February is to beat the bushes for candidates. Is anybody here thinking of running?
No.
No?
None of us present here.
You should. Do you know if anybody in your county is going to be running?
I don't know.
Things around there. Just make-
Chester County is pretty much what you're looking at.
We'll
Well,
take a couple.
this would be your chance to expand upon it, because I found that candidates energize a party. Because when you get people coming, like for example, Dave Walter was here earlier. When was the last time Dave Walter came to one of your meetings?
About a few months, yeah.
Okay, it's a way of getting more people out. Typically, the other counties that I go to, they see roughly double the number of people from a typical county meeting. And if you got one of your own people running, well, that's even better, because now you've got your own local celebrity to help fire up everybody. Another reason why I'm here is to talk about how we're going to get on the ballot. Because that first part of the campaign is getting the nomination, finding our candidates. Once we have them, we move on to the second part, which is the biggest part of the effort, and that's getting on the ballot. It's collecting those 16,500 signatures. The petition period opens on March 12th, which is one of the reasons why our convention is in February, because that way we can pick our candidates, set up the petitions, and on March 12th, we're ready to hit the ground running. The final date was way off in the summer, August 1st, the glory days of summer. So we have about 5 months to get those signatures. Now, the first time I ran for state representative in 1994, way back when I was just a young kid and my hair was a different color, way back then, I ran for state rep. What I did is I got a handful of my buddies and I said, primary day, stand at your polling place or the busiest polling places, and as people come out of the polls, stop them and say, excuse me, I'm trying to get Libertarian Party candidates on the ballot. Would you support democracy in your neighborhood? Sign the petition. And if they hesitate, I said, well, it doesn't commit you to anything. It's only to get them on the ballot. It doesn't require anything else. In one day, just a handful of people, a little more than a handful, we wound up getting over 1,000 signatures. And for state rep, I only needed 300. So I was aiming for about 500, 600 signatures. In one day, I got rid of it all. So that was just one state rep candidate, 1,000 signatures. Now we're aiming for 33,000. If we have 33 state rep candidates who do the same trick, we could be done the entire petition drive in one day. So this is another reason why I'm here. I want you to tell your boss, you're not going to be here, not going to be in work on May 20th, which is primary day. Because you could instead ask you to please go to your busiest local polling place. And it's easy to find out what that is. You can just call up your county seat and they can tell you what the busy ones are. When I do that in Montgomery County, they say, you got to come in and look it up yourself. I'm not going to go through those printouts. But it's no big deal. So that would mean that on primary day, we could do away with the entire petition drive. And if for some reason we fall short, that gives us enough time to hire paid petitioners to get the remainder by the August 1st deadline. So that's the plan for the middle, second phase of the campaigning season. Then comes the third part, the fun part. Once we're on the ballot, because once you're on the ballot, the floodgates open up. You're now legitimate, and everybody starts calling you. The League of Women Voters, the Pennsylvania Economic League, the local civic associations, newspapers start calling you up. They start asking you questions, and they write down the answers, and they report them in the paper. And it's all free. That's the best part. You can get the libertarian message out there for free, which is why you ought to think of running for state representative. Just to get the libertarian message out. If you even if you don't have time to run, just put your name on the petition. Because Pennsylvania law allows us libertarians to do something called stacking, where not only would our governor, lieutenant governor candidate be on the petition, but you could put congressperson, state senator, state representative, and one signature on that form will count for all 5. So that way, any signatures that you get, you're running, aren't you? Oh, come on, Dad. I will talk about it. So any signature that you get on primary day is going to count for everybody. So if we can get just 33 people across the state doing this, and that's going to be an easy trick, because I've been to several counties, and there's already almost a dozen candidates who have declared that they're going to be running. So if I keep doing this, and I plan to be doing this right on up through the convention in February, we can line it up such that we got everything going to happen on that one day. And then all the newspapers start calling after August 1st, you get invited to the debates. In 2002, I got invited to 4 debates. The first 2 were broadcast nationally. Next 2 were broadcast statewide. And we were included with everybody else, equal time. You can't buy that kind of coverage for the libertarian message. And that's when I got to meet Rich. If you go out to my website, kenk.org, there's a link that says prior gubernatorial campaigns. And for the 2002 campaign, at the top it says photos from the campaign. And if you go out there and look, you'll find your picture out there where you and I are sitting at a table talking.
I think Eric took it.
Eric did take it, that's right. There's a picture of me, AR-15.
That's what I took.
Yep. And you know, one of my daughters has that on her own personal homepage. Here's a picture of my dad. Very cool. And that's really the goal of why we're campaigning. Not to get your picture taken with a gun, but to have all the newspapers calling you, to get invited to the debates, invited to schools. In 2002, more than half of my appearances were at colleges and high schools, and even some grade schools. I made it as low as 3rd grade. And that was an interesting time, because the questions these kids had were just so cute. Doesn't it hurt your feelings when the other guys beat up on you? No, it's okay, because, see, their hearts are in the right place. They're just doing things not in the best manner. And that's why I'm here. I'm a teacher for them, to show them that the best way to do things is to respect the rights and property of others. And I annoy some of the teachers because I say, how many of you think you should live your life your own way as long as you don't hurt somebody else? Every hand in the room goes up. It's like, you're all libertarians. And I think that's really, really the strength of getting on the ballot. Because now you have a key to get into the schools, and you can talk to the young people. And I think the young people are going to make a huge difference this year, because what happened with Ron Paul in 2008 to 2012, he has energized college kids, high school kids, and I'm seeing it all over the place. There's so many new people. Like, I've seen Rich before. You know, before this year, I've never seen the rest of you. Everything's new. So it's a real energetic year. Last time I ran in 2002, I got 41,000 votes, a little under 41,000 votes. And that was a little more than 1%. That was a record for the Libertarian Party for Pennsylvania governor. This year, I expect to blow that number away, just because of the Ron Paul influence. So that's the third part of the campaign, where it really gets to be fun. So that's going to be the layout of the campaign. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to need your help. I need your help for the first part, find candidates, or just put your own name on the petition, because come August, you can always step aside in favor of somebody else. We can do substitutions. I think it's the 2nd or 3rd week of August. We can substitute names off the ballot and put somebody else's name on there. So even if you don't find somebody right away, just put down everybody's name here for each of your state representative districts. That's the easiest one to get on the ballot. Do you know your state representative district number? Who knows their state representative district number?
Mine's about to change to 160th.
Oh, there you go. Most people don't. Mine's the
Well,
one.
because I covered it.
There you go.
And Steve Barrar, see, it's the redistricting. I live in Canada. I've been in the 158th with Chris Ross as state rep. But with the redistricting, Barrar is moving into Canada. Talk about someone who can talk out of both sides of his mouth at the same time. I've been covering it for 12 years.
You know, and that's an interesting comment, because with the Democrats and the Republicans, you're never sure where they stand. One year they're in favor of higher taxes, next year they're in favor of lower taxes. When I went out to my old website in 2002, I was looking at the different stands and different position papers that I had. Nothing has changed. That's because we're the party of principle. What I believed then is what I believe now. Your life, your way, as long as you respect the rights of others and do the same. That's what freedom is all about. When I go back to my 1994 race, my first race for state representative, same thing. Nothing has changed. That's one of the good things about libertarians. You know where we stand, how we're coming at things. Makes life easy, especially for me. If I'm in a situation, somebody hits me with a new question. For example, I don't know, cloning. What do you think of cloning? Well, I can sit there on the fly and say, well, let me hold it against my principles. Does it harm other people? No. Does it respect their rights? Yes. Okay. No problem with cloning. However, it is, I'm not doing my Constitution. It is not in the Constitution, so the government has no right to get involved in cloning. While I have this in my hand, who's read this? There you go. I can tell I'm in a libertarian audience. You know, most people haven't. I ran for state rep last year, and I was in a debate, and one of the questions came up in the audience, like, yeah, are you going to do a jobs program for me? And the Democrats like, yeah, I'll give you a jobs program. And the Republican says, sure, we need a jobs program. And I was just like, excuse me, but I don't see in here where you're authorized to do jobs programs. And the Democrat looks away, the Republican looks away. Have you guys read this? One race, the Republican lady, state rep, she's like, well, I've skimmed it. And the Democrat just said, no, I've never read it. This is your job description. You've already sworn an oath. That's what you do on the ballot. You have to swear an oath to uphold this. You've already sworn an oath to uphold this, and you don't know what it says? I got a bridge I could sell you too, and you don't have to read that. So, if you have the Constitution, I have some extra copies with me if you want to take one away with you. Throw it in the bathroom. Read through it. Article 1 is very, very powerful. It was written by William Penn, Benjamin Franklin, a few other people like that. I could talk about Article 1 for a while, and it's right up front. It's our Declaration of Rights. Much, much stronger than the Bill of Rights. And I'll just give you one example. Article 1, Section 21. It says, the right of the people to bear arms in defense of themselves and the state shall not be questioned. Any question what that means? I don't have any question.
Chester County Sheriff Bunny Welch loves that.
Sounds good to me. Anybody who likes the Constitution, I'm behind them. Okay, what else have I missed? Talked about the 3 phases of the campaign. Need your help in the first one. Definitely need your help petitioning in the second one. And the third one, you guys are all going to be on the ballot. You're going to be out there having fun with me. My role as the governor candidate is going to be to come to visit you guys, so when you have an event, that I can stand there alongside of you and draw that media lightning down. That way, when it gets into the papers the next day, they're going to say, Governor candidate Ken Krawchuk was in today, standing alongside a state representative candidate, Nick LaBelle. And Nick said, whatever it is you're going to say. And you've got several months to put your platform together. I brought with me, it's in the box, I'm sorry, it's not the box, it's out of the box, a list, a sign-up sheet. If you're willing to volunteer to help on my campaign, I'd ask you to please sign up. Name, name, email address, phone number, and area of expertise if you have one, if there's something you would like to do. If you're good with social media, if you're good with mathematics, I'm still looking for a treasurer, I'm still looking for a campaign manager. I only announced last month, so everything is still fairly new in the race. And if you do, I have a couple of the Ken for Governor buttons. These are from 1998, in my race against Tom Ridge. And I pulled a bag of them out. If you sign up, I got a bag, and you can grab one of these buttons. With that, I think that's everything I came here to say. Line up your candidates, come to the convention on the 22nd, choose a candidate of your choice, take off primary day so we can get our candidates on the ballot, and get ready for next fall when you're going to have a lot of fun talking to the press. At this point, let me open up for questions on any subject.
This is probably the wrong thing to ask at this point, because I am remembering the 2010 election, when Betsy ran and there were two other Libertarians running for statewide office,
Yes.
and they were not on the ballot because the Republicans shot them down
Yes.
because of the signatures.
Yes.
How do we avoid that?
That's a very good question, because I was not going to run. When I ran back in 2002, if they had challenged my petitions, I don't think I would have withstood it, just because there were so many little things that they could have found out. And stupid things that they get you for, too. If you sign your name where you should print where you should sign, bad signature. If husband and wife sign it, and he puts the address, and she puts ditto marks, bad signature. If somebody prints their signature and doesn't use cursive, bad signature. All sorts of stupid little rules, or dozens of them. And when they drag you into court, they get rid of those. They cross off those signatures. They did that. They didn't do that to me in 2002, but in 2004, they did it to Ralph Nader. They came up with special software, and they took Ralph into court, got him down below the minimum, threw him off the ballot, and fined him $80,000. Isn't that ridiculous?
Making matters worse, it was election day, 2010. I was at the polls in Chatsworth making my rounds as a reporter, and I was talking with the then chairman of the Chatsworth Democratic Party. And I happened to comment to him about the Republicans keeping the Libertarians off the ballot. And he said, good. And I looked at him and goes, nobody but Republicans and Democrats should be allowed on the ballot because Ralph Nader kept Al Gore from winning in 2000.
I don't think so.
This is the mentality.
Well,
But this goes to the point of the great brainwashed society, but there's only two parties.
well, we're on it. Because, as I was saying, this is what they did to Nader in 2004. 2006, because of this 2% signature count rule, we needed 67,000 signatures. And we couldn't do it. We couldn't even come close. Russ Diamond ran that year. That was the year of the pay raise fiasco. He only wound up getting 45,000 signatures, which is impressive, but when you're aiming at 67,000, only one guy had the moxie to climb that wall, and that was a green guy, Carl Bruganelli. He collected 98,500 signatures, which is a record for Pennsylvania. Next highest was 78,000 from Peg Luxick back in 1998. But they dragged him into court, played the same game, switching around the sign where you should write, right where you should sign, kicked him off the ballot, and fined him $80,000. Come 2008, Bob Barr, Libertarian presidential candidate, they dragged him and his signatures into court. But he's a former congressman, and he had the resources to fight them back. He won. He stayed on the ballot. 2010, the year you're talking about, they challenged every single third-party and independent candidate. The Democrats challenged the Greens, the Republicans challenged the Libertarians, and one or the other challenged the Independents. Even Joe Sestak himself signed one of the challenges.
I believe.
These are guys who don't want competition for ideas. But we said, all right, we're going to go through the challenge. We got a letter. I should bring it with me. It's a fine, fine piece of extortion from the Republican lawyer, our state party chair. Dear Mr. Chair, we're going to be taking you to court to challenge your petitions, but my client has agreed that if you all withdraw from the race, then they'll drop their challenge. Now, as you know, in the past, there's been $80,000 fines, inflation and everything, it's gone up. This year, we're expecting it to be $106,000. So if you immediately withdraw from the race, we won't pursue it, but if you do, get ready for $106,000 fine. Everybody dropped out. Everybody. Betsy, Who was our governor candidate that year was Ron Satz. Lieutenant Governor was Kat Valalay. Who was
That's the name I...
Yep. From Montgomery County, she's our county treasurer. And everybody, right across the board, and they all withdrew. In fact, I stand here as the last third-party candidate for governor to appear in Pennsylvania. I ran in 2002. There's been no other third-party candidate from any party or independent who's run for governor since I ran. Okay, that was 2010. We were extorted off the ballot. 2012, they challenged us again, but this time we put up a fight because we learn a lot over the years. So last year, I guess it's still last year, it's still 2013 for another couple of weeks. Last year, we got a high-powered attorney, we had a lot of help from the National Party, and we drove back the challenge. It's close, it's only about 600 signature difference. I think we handed in 45,000 signatures, something like that, 42,000, right in around there. And we drove back the challenge. Next year, we're expecting it again. In fact, our attorney, we have him on retainer, the state party has him on retainer, and every now and again he comes in with a strategy memo saying, here's what's going on, here's the landscape. 2 months ago he sent us one in and said, get ready, they're going to do it again. Because Governor Corbett commissioned a poll, and the poll found that if there's a Libertarian in the race next year, he loses. If there's not, he wins. That's how the polls go. So our attorney is warning us, first of all, get ready for the challenge. Second of all, watch out for infiltrators. That's another reason why I'm here today. Watch out for somebody trying to disrupt you. I mean, they can come in here and they can start yelling or turning over tables. Next thing you know, find people here at the pizza place don't want you around. And I've seen it happen. It happened over at the Villanova Dining. But anyway, be ready for it. But the point is, we're now ready for it. By getting our signatures on primary day, the quality of the signatures is very, 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 very high. Because you know the person's a registered voter, you know what district they're in, you've got one person there who's trained how to do it, knows how to do it. And then we also have access to what's called the SURE registry, the state registry of voters. And what we're going to do is, starting on primary day, is we're going to write in the numbers of every single voter. And it's, in essence, we're going to challenge ourselves. So that way we will know how many challenge-proof signatures we have, so we can keep on going until we get that point that we need to. That's one thing that we're doing to make sure that we're on the ballot. Another thing is that we have a bill in the House, Senate Bill 195. We call it the Voters' Choice Act. What it does is get rid of that silly 2% number entirely, and it just makes everything even. Tom Corbett needs 2,000 signatures to get on the ballot. I need 2,000 signatures to get on the ballot. Constitution, Article 1, Section 5, wherever my Constitution is, says that all elections shall be free and equal. 2,000 should equal 2,000. You know, in fact, in 2006, the year that it was 67,000 signatures, I was the plaintiff on a case, federal case, to overturn that, to say 67,000 does not equal 2,000. We went to federal court, made a federal case out of it, and the judge said, well, that's equal. So we appealed it to the district court, federal district court, circuit court, I'm sorry, think of a state. And those judges looked at it and said, yeah, those 67,000 and 2,000 are equal. So we went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court just, it wouldn't even hear the case. So it stood. There's another case going on right now. It's still at the first level. It's in federal court right now. I'm a plaintiff on that. I would, again, just keep trying and trying and trying. This is personally, this is my third case. First was in state court, and now this is the second federal case, trying to get these signature requirements overturned. Will we have it done in time for the election? I don't know. So we have a two-pronged attack. One of them is legal, and the other one is just double down from everything that we've learned over the past couple of years. It's a long answer to your question. And you can always call your state senator, state representative, and ask them to support it.
Go on.
No. Right now we are in the State Government Committee, and our prime sponsor is Mike Fulmer from Lebanon. And we have, I don't know, a dozen
co-sponsors on it right now, and we're currently lobbying the state government committee to hold a hearing. Because once it hits the floor for a vote, it's a surefire winner. Because who is going to vote to say, oh no, you can't get on the ballot? It would be an untenable position for them to hold. And Mike Fulmer thinks that's the case as well. So we'll see. So that's one of the things that we're trying. Long answer.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Thank you, sir. I've been living that. We formed the Pennsylvania Ballot Access Coalition back in 1997. And it's a coalition of Greens, Reform Party, Naderites, communists, prohibitionists. You should have been there for our first meeting, because we all got together at a restaurant, and a couple of us libertarians were looking like, what's the prohibitionists? And the prohibitionists on the other side were going, it's the libertarians. But we've become good friends, because while we may disagree on a lot of issues, we all agree on fair ballot access, and that's all we talk about. In fact, I'm the unofficial mom of the coalition, because if somebody starts talking about gun control or universal health care or whatever, I'm like, whoa, stop right there. Because if we start talking about that stuff, it'll blow us apart. We can't do that. Barry Kaufman from Common Cause, very influential politician in the state, he's called our coalition historic. This is the 4th time we've gotten a bill introduced since 1997. And every time we push, we get so far. Push, we get a little further. Push, we get a little further. Is this the year we're going to get it over the top? Maybe. You know, after I heard about that poll from Tom Corbett, the Libertarian is there, he's going to lose.
You wanted Democrats to know about it.
Well, I started with him. I went to him and I said, listen, I will not run, and I'll talk to Libertarians into not running a candidate, if you pass our Voters' Choice Act. 2 weeks, he was off thinking about it. Came back, he's like, nah. And now, you're on the ball here. We go to the Democrats. Who heard about what happened in Virginia in the election this year? The Democrats were openly helping the Libertarian candidate. What did they give, $175,000? Huge amount of money. We are standing in that same position right here today. So this is going to be an exciting year next year. So it was just a week or so ago, maybe 3 weeks ago now. I just got back from vacation with my wife. We spent a couple weeks on a cruise. Our daughter works for Princess Cruises, and she gets us on boats dirt cheap. So I just got back on Sunday. Can you imagine that? You're coming from Caribbean beaches, and you come back up here and you
Take
got
another cruise.
all this snow. That's what my wife was saying. Take me back to summer. Take me back to summer. So I'm a little bit out of touch with what's been going on the last couple of weeks here. In any case, we're going to approach the Democrats, and we're going to do the same thing. Say, listen, here's what the polls say. What can you do for us? And there's history for this in Pennsylvania, too. It's not something I'm going to say while the camera is running, but I received help from the Democrats in 2002. Some of it was innocent help. For example, as I said, it was in 4 debates. There were 6. The final 2, one of them was legal women voters debate, and they wouldn't let me in. It's a long story.
I vaguely remember that.
Untenable position, but it's their debate. They can do what they want. So I didn't get into that debate. But Ed Rendell wrote a letter to the national head of the legal women voters saying, please allow Ken in the debate. So that was one innocent thing that we did, something I can talk about while the camera's running. But there's a lot of other things that went on in the background that I'm not going to mention. After my battery runs, then maybe I'll come back and talk about that. A lot I can talk about the mechanics of us getting to the ballot. Because my first campaign manager and I, in 2002, ran our own statewide campaign. And it was a nightmare. It was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. Up until that point and since then. You're collating the efforts of thousands of volunteers, putting together all the paperwork. We turned in 33,500 signatures. We were up 3, 4 in the morning for several nights in advance. We got it. We're on the ballot. We're ready to do it again. Other questions?
I have one. As an IT professional and a libertarian, what's your reaction to the Snowden disclosures?
Well, I guess my initial reaction is it's not a state issue, but I certainly have an opinion about it. Definitely, the government has overstepped. I think Snowden is a hero.
I think he should be lauded as a hero. Because he has shown that our government is not a moral government. They're playing Santa Claus. They see you when you're sleeping. They know when you're awake. They know if you've been bad or good. So let's do something for goodness sake. So I definitely did the right thing. Definitely sacrificed a lot to help us realize what's going on. And it's still, that snowball is still growing. It was just a couple days ago, and I just saw this in the news, that Google and Yahoo and everybody are all getting together now, and they're starting to demand things. So this could be the makings of another American Revolution. We'll see. I don't know. And it's not going to be a shooting revolution, it's going to be a keyboard revolution.
Constitutionally and politically, as governor, what power, ability does the governor have to influence at least medical marijuana in the state?
Well, I think there's a couple of things.
Because it's been in the House committee since like forever, maybe.
Yep. There's a couple ways of doing it. Obviously, the best way to do it is legislatively. And as governor, I've got the bully pulpit. I can start making deals with them. Something that's unimportant, like, I don't know, declare April to be National Roses Month or whatever it may be. I'll say, okay, fine. Let's make it National Marijuana Month or State Marijuana Month too. Let's get this passed. So I can use the bully pulpit of the governor's office. But there's also a trick that Ed Rendell used in Philadelphia. I was born and raised in Philadelphia, North Philadelphia, to be precise. And I lived there for many years until I voted with my feet to get away from their 5% wage tax. But when Ed Rendell was the district attorney in Philadelphia, he instructed the police not to go after small marijuana crimes because they were clogging the courts. As I mentioned before, we're releasing murderers and rapists, make room for pot-smoking Grateful Dead fans. Well, Ed Rendell saw the benefit of not wasting police resources on those sorts of things. Now, as the governor, I'm the executive. And I command the militia, National Guard, state police, and I can just give the same order that Ed Rendell gave them way back when. So don't prosecute these cases. So the second thing that can be done, again, this is with the bully pulpit. Most people aren't aware of it, but there's something called jury nullification. It comes from William Penn.
Right.
William Penn's time. It's William Penn himself who established the idea that the jurors can try not only the facts of the case, but the law as well. So it doesn't matter, the person can be guilty as hell, but the jury can still say not guilty. This was done during the Civil War for people who were helping escape slaves. Well, it was against the law to help an
It's
escaped
also
slave.
done in the John Peters Anger case.
Yep, and it was done during Prohibition. They couldn't get a conviction for alcohol possession. I hear they're doing it in Kentucky right now. In Kentucky, the biggest cash crop there is marijuana, and they can't get a conviction for marijuana down there. So you as jurors, you should try and get on a jury, because if you say not guilty, it's not guilty. You can hang the jury with your nope, pot-smoking kid. He doesn't belong in college. I don't care how many lines that guy snorted. Did he hurt anybody? No. No hurt, no harm, no crime. Not guilty. So that's something else. A lot of people aren't aware that as jurors they have this power. Judges don't tell them that.
And they judge instruct them the total opposite.
That's right. Judge says, no, you gotta just look at the facts. Don't even look at the law.
Letter of the law, yes.
Look at it. And that's wrong. You know, we in Montgomery County, we have an initiative going on. We have, I don't know what to call them, billboards, little advertisements in the DC Metro on either side of the federal courthouse, in Judiciary Square Station and Union Station, telling jurors, saying, jury duty, you have the right to judge the law as well as the facts. And it goes down several bullet points. And the prosecutors there are asking jurors, when they're coming in, asking them questions, did you see those billboards down in the subway? Because they know it's going to be influencing cases. Has it? I don't know. So we've had them up there. Up there right now. We've had them up there a couple of months. And we've just finished the fundraising portion, and we're putting them up now in LA. And one thing that I'm going to be doing myself personally, I've already started this ball rolling,
we're going to be putting them in Montgomery County, right outside the Montgomery County Courthouse. There's a big transportation center there where regional rail comes in, the high-speed line, all buses. It's just a big transportation hub. And we're going to rent, I'm going to rent a billboard in there. It says the same thing. I'm just going to take the same thing that we've got down in D.C., same thing that we're putting in L.A., and we're going to put it in Montgomery County. We're going to do here in Pennsylvania. So, you ask, what can be done about marijuana? There's lots of things we can do. Inform jurors that are right to try the law as well as the facts. Use the bully pulpit. Reallocate the efforts of the police departments. There's all sorts of things.
Just for your edification, if jurors had been aware of their rights when Susan B. Anthony was tried and convicted for voting, women would have had the vote 40 years earlier.
That's a good one. I didn't know that.
Yeah, because it was a directed verdict by the judge. The jurors wanted to acquit. The judge directed a guilty verdict.
Sounds like the judge was the guilty man there.
Well, that's why they got rid of directed verdicts.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Other questions? And by the way, this is another reason I'm out here now, is to get practice.
Right.
Taking questions. There was a guy, I was in, where's that? Susquehanna Valley, it was in Sunbury. Not last night, the night before, Tuesday night. And this one guy, he had this big, long list of questions. Some of them were very, very on the edge. But you get down so far, and he says, I know what you're going to say to this. And I stopped him the third time he said that. I said, that's why I like being a libertarian. You know what I'm going to do. If some new situation comes up, you know I'm going to defend your right to live your life your way as long as you don't harm others. But anyway, I appreciate being here just so I can practice my fielding of questions. If you notice I'm doing anything wrong, or if you're stuck, Ken, come on, that's stupid. Stop me.
I'm trying to remember everything I heard when Corbett was in town last month, kicking off his re-election campaign, because I covered it. And he spoke in these grand terms about education and how he has improved education, basically thrown more money at it.
Yep.
The one kind of positive thing that he was saying is that employment has grown in the state, but not because of state government actually doing anything, but more or less getting out of the way.
That's a very libertarian statement.
And yeah, at least free market. He said those jobs have come from the private sector.
That's good. A lot of times Republicans agree with us on some of the economic issues.
But when they get in office, however,
Yeah, right. Then everything changes. Just look at Obama. He's a good example. Well, I'm going to close Gitmo in Cuba. Well,
Yeah.
It's still open. I'm going to end the wars. We're still there.
and raising that debt ceiling is just wrong.
Yep.
I know.
Which brings me to a point that I haven't mentioned yet. What's the solution to that? Right now, 80% of the Pennsylvania budget is earmarked for giveaway programs. 60% of the federal budget, and you can quibble, it's maybe 65 or a couple points up and down, but they're giveaway programs. They're not the purpose of government. The role of government is to defend the rights and property of the citizens. That's it. It's not to glad hand tax money around. So when I roll these things back, all these social programs, who's going to take care of the people who are relying on them? You can't just eliminate these programs outright, like the PACE program. There are too many seniors that are relying on the drugs that they get from the PACE program. You can't just eliminate welfare, because there's a lot of people who are relying on those payments. You can't just abolish the unemployment compensation system, because there are a lot of people out of work who need that bridge to get them over to the next one. So what do? That is the story here. It's a new concept that I'm presenting. It's called the separation of society and state. What we need to do is take all of these feel-good programs and get them out of the state. Most of them are unconstitutional. Get them out of the state and move them back to society
where they belong. Now, in order to do that, what I'm calling for is the creation of an organization that I call society. Society would look just like government. So at the federal level, there'd be a president of society, there'd be a House of Representatives society, senators of society. Here in Pennsylvania, there'd be a governor of society, a House of Representatives and senators for society. And at the local level, you'd have a mayor of society, a town council for society. And they would pass, I call them guidelines and not laws. Because the key difference between society and the state is that society does not have the coercive power of taxation. In fact, they have no coercive powers at all. So, they can pass a PACE program where we're going to give prescription drugs to little old ladies. But they can't pick your pocket to do it. What they have to do instead is rely upon contributions. So they need to hold bake sales, telethons, or whatever it's going to be. And I know it will be successful because Americans love to give. Very, very generous people. But what we need is a vehicle by which we can set up these programs, all the worthwhile ones, and fund them without constantly pulling money out of your pocket. As I said, 80% of the Pennsylvania budget right now is giveaway programs. And if we don't do it, there's a debt bomb ticking. And looking at the national level, that's the one I'm mostly worried about. Just looking at that summarily, the national budget is about $3.5 trillion. National income is $2.3 trillion. So that extra $1.2 trillion is borrowed every year. Well, that's one thing, but when you look in the details of it, $2.2 trillion of that $3.5 trillion budget are giveaway programs. Welfare, Social Security, Medicare, and now Obamacare, all these other things. $2.3 trillion in revenue, $2.2 trillion welfare state. Virtually every dollar we've got coming into the federal door is going out the door for giveaway programs. And everything else that the government does, whether it's defense, Amtrak, Export-Import Bank, NASA, all that is borrowed money. And the welfare state is growing year after year after year. We've got to stop that. And the question is, how do we stop it? Separation of society and state. Start offloading all these worthwhile programs to society where they're paid for not by coercive taxation, point of a gun, but rather by contributions. And that's my approach. That's the story of the book.
How do you tackle PEASers?
Tackle who?
PEASers, Pennsylvania State Employee Retirement System.
That is a very good question. What I would do is just follow the lead of what all of corporate America has been doing for the last 20 years, 30 years, and instead of going to a defined benefit system, go to a defined contribution system. There are a lot of contracts out there, and as a libertarian and as an American, I cannot interfere with the sanctity of the contract. You can come up with any kind of a contract you want, and you need to live up with it. So any contracts that are there, I have no power to change. However, we can address it going forward, saying we're going to shift to a defined contribution system instead of the defined benefit system. So that's the short answer. And you know, there's an interesting thing in the back here. I think it's like section 9 or something like that. It says that the state shall not invest in any corporation. But these pensions are all invested in corporations in violation of the Constitution. They don't read it. None of them read it. I already told you, there's been several debates where I've trumped people. That's why you should have a copy of this sitting in your bathroom at home. Just go through it. Don't bother reading section 5, Article 5, because that's all about
I do check.
Ah, good for you. That's why I like libertarians. They know what's going on.
My truck outside.
Close enough.
Close enough.
And I go into schools, and I'll say that. I'll say, how many of you have read this? Nobody is. I go to teachers, don't you teach them this? This is how your government works. And you're not teaching them? The government owns the schools, lock, stock, and barrel. They own the teachers, lock, stock, and barrel. They own the curriculum, lock, stock, and barrel. Constitution? What Constitution?
Yeah.
I didn't know this existed until I was in my 30s. And then I'm reading it, it's just like, I can't believe it. Article 1, Section 2. People have at all times the right to alter, reform, or abolish their government in whatever manner they see fit. William bequeathed us the right to revolution. That's why I'm telling us. We might decide someday we want to reform or abolish our government. I enjoy this, the campaigning. So I've been around the Libertarian Party for about 20 years now. And in the beginning, I just didn't know what was going on, but it was like a bright light in a room that I was tripping over stuff before it was dark. And now it's just like, I understand, I see what's going on. And over the years, I pick up ideas from various people, including Dave Walter and other longtime libertarians. Collapse it down into a nice little package, and now I'm running on it. And I'm waiting for an issue that was going to trip me up. Some of them seem borderline. I got an email today from somebody asking me if I can't remember the bill number, but what they're going to do is eliminate property tax and shift it over to the income tax. And would I support that bill? And my first reaction was, well, it's good to get rid of property taxes. Of course, I have my own way of getting rid of property taxes, but it's a good idea to get rid of them. But look what they're doing. It's a shell game. They're only moving it from, oh, it's over here, oh, no, now it's over here. It doesn't change anything. The same bad practices that are in place now to fund all these various things are going to stay there. So it doesn't change anything. It's a shell game. So I oppose that because it doesn't answer anything. The best thing to do is separate society and state and start offloading all these things to society and let us pay for those things that we can afford. And if we can't afford it, we scale back. Yes?
If they were relocating the property tax to income tax, how would that work for people that rent?
Well, right now when you rent, you're paying the property tax anyway. It's part of your rent.
Oh, okay.
So, like for example, if you're paying $1,000 a month in rent, and there are, let's keep the math easy, let's say there are 10 apartments there. The owner of the apartments is paying, let's say he's paying $1,000 rent. So 10% of each one of those units is going to pay for the property tax.
Oh.
So you're paying it. It's all just rolled up into that ball. Also, whatever you buy, you know, whether even here in this pizza place, part of the price of that pizza is the property tax it's paying here.
Remember,
So
businesses don't pay taxes.
that's right. Businesses do not
Consumer
pay taxes. You
Pays
pay.
the business, and part of that goes to the tax.
That's right. And the businesses
It's built into your cost as a consumer.
baked in is the term they use in the defense industry. The cost is baked in. And it's good for pizza, right? It's a good analogy.
Yeah.
But it's still there. What would that mean if we can get rid of the property tax is that everything would get cheaper. Not just your property taxes going away, but your pizza would be a little cheaper, my beer would be a little cheaper. Good question. Any other questions?
I don't think I have any more.
Well, let me thank you very much for inviting me here, for giving me the practice.